Thank you, and I'd like to thank the Minister and your officials for being here today. I suppose I agree in saying that this plan is an opportunity, I think, of a generation, and it's important that we get it right now and set out our vision. So I really welcome the very thorough consultations that have taken place across the country, and I know that that needs to now, I suppose, ramp up until the 3rd of November. Just, I suppose, coming from somebody who is from a city, I recognise and I agree with you, Minister, that this isn't just about cities, it's about moving out as well to the regions. And when you look at the population of Dublin, it's 166% greater than it was at the foundation of the state. And when you compare that to the population of Connacht, which is now less than it was back in 1926. So we really need to be looking at this counterbalance to Dublin and the Greater Leinster area. And when that's mentioned, often people in the capital feel that that's a threat to them, and it's not. This is about rebalancing the development, economic development right across the country, and it will be to benefit everyone. So with that said at the outset, in relation to Galway, I'm just looking at the key future growth enablers, and they're very positive. And a few comments that I would have, and I would look specifically at the submission made by Galway Chamber. They have consulted widely with a large range of stakeholders, and I welcome, obviously you've all heard of our traffic problems and transport issues in Galway and the need for an outer city bypass, or the Galway City Ring Road. It has had a number of different names over the years, and I think we all acknowledge that, but that will take at least 10 years for that to come into effect, and we need to be looking at public transport, as is stated in the document, improving access and sustainable transport links and integration with existing employment areas to the east of the city, and it mentions Parkmore, and I know you, Minister, your officials, and Minister Coveney at the time was very much involved with trying to, and still is trying to tackle the huge traffic congestion there. Many people are not living in the city, working there, they're coming from outside the city, East Galway, South Mayo, travelling in, and I think a key solution there would be park and ride facilities, and that would really need to be included in this plan as part of the overall solution. In relation to the bypass, not everyone wants to bypass the city. We also need to be looking at an integrated public transport system for people working. We have our NUIG, GMIT, we have our hospital centre of excellence in our city centre. So it's a two-pronged approach. The Galway Chamber submission as well make reference to the need for a conference, exhibition and performance centre for Galway, and not just for the city. Again, this is about the region as a cultural centre for business, the arts and culture, and as well as Galway Harbour, the expansion of the harbour. And again, it's not just about accommodating cruise ships and freight. This could be a business and an enterprise district for the region again. I don't see any reference, and traffic and congestion has come up. I think any member of the Oireachtas who would come in here today will talk about the issues around traffic and commuting times. I don't see any reference to high-speed trains, and for example, even if starting with the Galway-Dublin route, and again, this would help opening up access to the regions. And just I made reference there to our Centre of Excellence, Galway University Hospital. It was designated that many years ago, and it's serving not just Galway, but people from Donegal all the way down to South Clare and as far east as Athlone. But yet we haven't received adequate infrastructural investment to support that. And 200 consultants, medical clinicians have come out and written to the Minister for Health acknowledging that Galway and the West and the North West needs a proper new acute hospital, and I think that needs to be included in it as well, and that's part of Galway Chamber's submission. Again, it's about the regions, it's not about one area, it's not a local issue, it's a regional issue, and it's about planning now. We know this is not going to happen in the next 2-3 years, but this has to be part of our 2040 plan. And I met recently with presidents of GMIT, Sligo IT and Letterkenny IT, and again this is about opening access to education, and they raised the issue of the need for a Connacht-Ulster alliance, that they would like to see more of an emphasis on that in this plan to develop a technological university. And again, you made reference, rightly so, to developing skill sets, apprenticeships, all of that, and I think they're well placed to serve that need. And also, just in relation to your projections, how this plans for the projections for our over 65 population, which is coming down the track, and how we are preparing for that. And again, I'll go back to our Centre of Excellence, University Hospital Galway, which is not equipped to deal with that currently in its current infrastructural capacity. It needs to be expanded. We also have Merlin Park, a sister hospital, which has a leaking roof and has cancelled all its orthopaedic surgeries. This is a 1950s TB hospital that has never been renovated, and all surgeries have been cancelled, and this is supposed to be our centre of excellence. So yet again, with our population increase, we're going to need these facilities, and it needs to be included in the plan. But I want to thank you, Minister. I know this is the start of the process. I acknowledge that, but it's just important that we set out these infrastructural projects that need to be included in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Naughton. Minister.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try and shorten my answers a bit. I might bring in Niall Cousins as well on the kind of planning and transport around Galway, because he's been very familiar with it and working closely with it, and has been corresponding with yourself as well on it. Look, we've been in Galway on this plan as well, and we've had a local consultation there. We met a lot of the local authorities, both city and council as well. I haven't met the Chamber of Commerce directly, but I've read their submission as well. And we do pay reference exactly in this plan to the importance of investing in the ring road and the out ring road of Galway. I know of the complications around that. From a planning point of view, it's taken a long time just to plan, but we need to try to push down and achieve that as well. But also we talk about improving the access and the sustainable transport links, and there's a very good plan on paper for what Galway, and I think if we invested in that plan, would solve it. So it's again making the case to win that investment for the city. But we would recognise, and we're very clear on this, that positions like Galway City is crucial to development of the Western region. I mean, that's how you're going to grow the regions around that. If you have a top class city competing on the international level like Galway, which it does for medtech, it's a major hub for medtech, and that's putting it on the map. But it's also bringing investment into the region and to around that, and giving people a reason to live close by. And again, that's what we're trying to do. So we do envisage, and that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here, investment in our cities to grow them, increase the population in them. There are major issues in Galway around housing, which we have to work on as well. And again, we have to have some really long-term thinking there, which I think we're trying to drive. Again, you mentioned the hospitals. Department of Health under Simon Harris are doing that, and so at the moment into looking at the use of their hospitals and the capacity within them, and recognising that there's more beds required and more investment in hospitals. So it's making those choices. Where do we go, or where does the investment will happen? And again, we want to be able to track that and follow that and allow for that their thinking in this plan. That's why all the agencies are around the table. But it is about also looking 20-25 years ahead and seeing where do we need hospitals. And yes, of course, Galway has the one in our regional centre, but making choices around what other health services are in other towns to support Galway. And I go down to this regional thinking and supporting and trying to encourage that as well. So yes, we will do that. We do recognise that, in those years ahead, we'll have over 1.3 million people over 65 living in our country. And that'll be some of us here as well. And we have to plan for that, because it's going to, and it's important that we do that and recognise that. And again, not just pay lip service, we've actually put in place proper long-term planning to give people the choice of where they'll be able to access services, where they want to live, but also to develop lifelong communities, that you have a choice to live within the one community, that you're at the moment sometimes your only choice is to move if you need accommodation for an older person, to move out of your community. That's not sustainable. That's not what we're trying to achieve, and we want to be able to plan for that in this as well. Again, I think I've covered that too. The community supports, healthcare needs, that's all been talked about in here, but the delivery of that is bringing the agencies together underneath this plan through the other local plans as well, that we're trying to achieve that as well. Now, do you want to come in on the actual land use and around?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Minister. As has been flagged in your contribution, some of the issues around Parkmore have been the focus of our department, and obviously the Department of Transport's attention, working with the local authorities. And obviously the recent opening of the new motorway has probably tipped the balance again away from free-flow traffic and more towards congestion. But there have been some positive developments in the last few days in relation to agreement about land transfers and clearing the way for additional capacity in that area, which we'll be back to you about. But I suppose Parkmore, in its own way, is a great example of where the state agencies, the IDA, working with the local authorities, transport providers, and so on, have created, a world-class cluster of medtech and other enterprises that are thriving in the west of Ireland, in Connacht, providing high-tech employment for over 8,000 people that are drawn from a wide regional catchment, including the city, and obviously right through South Roscommon, East Galway, and so on. And it's a classic example of where the critical mass, the infrastructure, the enterprise, and the economic development conditions, the knowledge and the skills and all that all come together. Even in the western seaboard and more peripheral parts of our country, we can really succeed and drive regional growth. There are some short to medium term issues that have arisen in relation to transportation access and connectivity, and just from a departmental and a cross-departmental point of view, we're absolutely committed to resolving those in the fastest time possible. And of course, the long-term answer is the ring road.
Yeah. And sorry, Chair, Senator Hildegard, you did also ask about the high-speed rail, and it is. You had a bit of reference in conversation. Both Minister Coveney at the time and Minister O'Murphy have repeatedly talked about those options. And in our sustainable mobility section, and we talk about investing in rail and that connection and public transport, and that's what we mean there. It's not written in as high-speed rail, but that's exactly what we're talking about, having that conversation. But again, it goes back to having a concentration of people in certain areas to make that viable and worthwhile. And that can happen. This country can afford that, but only in a planned way. So I think you're actually spot on in highlighting that and raising it. And I think Galway is one of those regional centres that if we can grow the city enough, it makes it sustainable to have that option as well.
And the Connacht Ulster Alliance, the ITs.
Yes,
it is included.
Yeah. But again, I think we've seen the reason you have Galway developed as a medtech centre of the world is because of that connection between our education system and our enterprise system, and that that collaboration. And I see it there. I've been in my time of research minister, I was done a lot in Galway, in the university and in GMIT, around that connection and the regional, the collaboration, I would say, across all the stakeholders. But it's been driven by top class people in the education system working with enterprise and constantly expanding those companies and winning new products, but also the link with the university hospital as well. That's key to developing top class health services as well as developing services and products that can be used all over the world too. So I think we need to build on that too, and we recognise it in here as well.